Hi, this is Dave Klein for Dundore and Heister, where they work very hard to preserve and present traditions and maybe even sometimes add a little bit so that the traditions are even improved for the next generation. My name's Dave Klein. I just got off of a wonderful day of skiing in the Pocono Mountains and I'm hungry. So we're going to take you to D&H. We're going to go to the kitchen first and watch Chef Al make a fabulous beef stew. And we're going to talk with Mark, the butcher, one of the butchers at D&H, and the proprietor, Todd, at Dundore and Heister. And we're going to go to the sampling room and we're going to taste this beef stew that Al has created. And along the way, we're going to tell you a little bit about the traditions of beef stew and how they tie into Groundhog's Day. Because my friend Keith Brinsenhoff and I are going to give you a little rendition of the old Groundhog song by the stone wall here at the house. So let's go enjoy the kitchen and then the sampling, and do know that you can make this exact recipe because D&H will give you the recipe for free and they have everything you need to make it. Let's go. Look at that deliciousness just simmering away. Chef Al, what'd you make here?
So you know we're getting like 12 inches of snow tomorrow, and that informs our cooking because it speaks to our cravings. So we took this incredible sirloin and took it for 3 hours low and slow. And I like to give it a little oven time too. Caramelize the top, makes the beef rich. It is salted, but the beautiful flavors come out of the roasting of the meats and the vegetables. We finish with green beans and then a little bit of cracked pepper. All this is warming, restorative, nutritional, and it's a one-pot meal. People do love that, but it has potatoes, carrots, celery, onions, green beans, and cracked pepper. So zero in on that, and if we can get close enough, maybe you can even smell a little bit.
Smell-o-vision, yeah. Beautiful. Okay, Chef Al's going to plate some of this up so we can taste it. We got Todd and Mark here in the background. Hey, guys, I'm getting you anyway, you know? Look at that.
Yeah.
Oh!
It's all about the stew meat.
You know, I've been out skiing all day long, and so looking at this, what you've made here, from my eyes right now to my stomach, I'm saying, oh, yeah, come on, look at that. That's heaven.
You were skiing all day. You came in with the Goldschlager, I heard.
I did not. Well, we're going to taste this in just a minute.
It smells amazing.
Exact proportions of the recipe are it serves 10 to 12 people, these portions. Or it could serve one really hungry person.
Well, okay, so D&H is going to throw that recipe online, on social media and so
Everybody
forth.
has it. Yeah, the only need, you can come in and we'll have the stew meat. Mark will have the stew meat ready to go. You just use the recipe and be able to follow Al's instructions, and it'll make make the house smell amazing.
Yes.
Great, perfect Sunday afternoon.
I've been waiting for this all day.
Yeah, no
We've been
kidding.
eat all
Yeah.
day waiting for this.
From the moment we said we were going to have Al work on it, I was waiting on it.
Seriously.
Get yourself a good belly pot or a Dutch oven right here.
Okay, yep, okay.
I love the really heavy cast
Yep,
iron
yep,
with the
yep.
enamel. It makes a difference. Your equipment makes a difference.
Sure.
Great
And
meat,
how many
great
hours?
equipment. 3.5.
3.5
Yeah,
hours.
and let it rest. Don't eat it right away.
And again, the meat.
The meat, it's just a beautiful cube sirloin from D&H.
Okay, great. About that comment about letting it sit, I always think stuff like that tastes better.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Sometimes I really think even the next day it's like, whoa, it's
100%.
really amazing.
Oh,
Yeah,
it is.
yep. Okay, well, you served it up. Let's get some reaction here as we taste it.
There we go.
The carrot still got some crunch to it.
And the potatoes are perfectly tender. Yeah, man.
Well, they start in with the meat.
Well, guys, it seems to be unanimous. We love the beef stew. You can't go wrong with
Sorry
it.
for the people that are watching this, they don't have it right away.
I mean, you got to come in and get the recipe. That's free. You can get all the ingredients you need here, and sort of one-stop shop, because the purpose of this video is to sort of tie the old traditions with the new. So in the old days, and it's like this still in many farms, you wouldn't have multiple courses served at a meal. You'd have one pot meal, or what they call potluck. And there's different names for it in many different cultures. But in the old farms of Switzerland and Germany, especially where I've seen, this would be like a big deal. You'd have this going on the fireplace.
Right on the hearth, right?
Right, on the hearth, and it'd be bubbling away, and then Ma would yodel up onto the mountain to the pastures with Dad and the sons and stuff, and they would be, oh, look at that stew meat in there. And that's tender.
And you could throw an egg on that in the morning.
Oh,
Yeah, and I love the fact that the tradition of our
Yep.
old Berks County farmhouses, with an open hearth, they would have a pot on all the day. They would have their base broth that they would have on, and it'd just be kind of simmering away. There was the base of everything that they made. It was communal. So with the one pot meal, everyone would sit around. They'd have the pot, much like we're doing here.
Yep.
Where you have the pot on the table, it's communal. You're able to sit and talk and share the hard work of the day and catch up, you know.
Right, and also back in those days, you think like, well, what did those people do all day long? We know what we do in the modern world and so forth. All day long, what they did was basically try to survive, you know, eat and work hard and stuff. So, you know, mom or whomever would have something like this simmering in the hearth and the fire. That'd be happening all day long. And she'd be able to adjust that by moving it in and out toward the heat, right?
And that's when life was good. My mother worked, my grandmother raised me, and all we did all day, my preschool, was cook.
Yeah,
And get ready for people to come home.
yeah. And so
in
then
the day we'd procure, we'd get the ingredients.
You get
We'd
the
find the
ingredients.
best available of the day to meet the cravings of the season. And then we would serve that up at night and love each other.
the cravings of the season.
Yes,
I love that.
absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, there's a, you know, the Indians would know when fish were running in a certain part of the river because of the phenols of the trees and the colors they would be. So all nature kind of is a cyclical clock, and we're part of nature, even though we don't think we are. And we have certain cravings that arise through the certain seasons that we need to meet, and it actually has a point to do with our strength and our health and our immune systems, because we need to vary our diets based on the seasons. Not only is it just that it's the least expensive way to buy when things are at their top quality, it's what our bodies need, which is truly what we crave. We crave it through flavor, but it's more deeper than that. Our bodies need it. It's a need.
So back then, folks didn't really realize what you were saying. It just was happening instinctually, you know. And
It was
in the modern
instinctual.
world, we've kind of gotten away from that, you know. And
We have no cosmological reference
Right.
to our cuisine anymore.
but stuff like this at D&H, and them, you know, having the ingredients here and the recipe giving out, this kind of teaches everybody how they can kind of go back in time and using maybe the modern, top of the line ingredients.
Yes.
But again, they'd have this cooking all day long, and mom would be off doing whatever she's doing, maybe fixing some things around the house or doing some sewing or whatever, or maybe she was outside taking care of some livestock, and
Yep.
maybe dad and the kids were doing the same thing. And then at the end of the day, as Todd said, they would all gather at a communal table like we're doing, and they'd tell stories about the day.
Yeah.
There was no television, you know, there was no
You know,
radio,
you make a
there was
good
no
point.
internet.
It's not like they were sitting at a computer all day.
No,
They
that's
were
right.
doing
That's
hard
right.
work.
That's
So
right.
They needed this for
That's
the
right.
energy to build energy for the next day.
And the
for
point
next
is,
day.
once this is in the pot, you could do everything else all day long. Because those 3.5 hours I spoke of did not need your attendance. And
Right.
it did make the house smell beautiful. And you knew people were coming home and they anticipated this
were
being there
hungry.
for them.
And this is it. They were
But
hungry.
literally, the preparation of the dish was 15 minutes.
You know, that was the highlight of their day, probably, as it is now. You said,
Right.
Mark, that you were looking forward to this all day. I was looking
Yeah.
forward to it for days since Todd and I talked about it. So you can see that, you know, you go out and you work and you come in. All right, well, I'm going to taste it now because I've been doing talking with everybody. I just came in from a day of skiing, and I'm cold and I'm hungry. And I want to see, you know, if this is, I know without even tasting it from the aroma. Aroma
Excuse me, I can
precedes.
tell you I wasn't skiing all day.
Mark's taking seconds here. I don't know. There's only one. You only get one
Now,
shot here.
can I ask you, because I know what I
Yeah.
expect.
This
What do you
is
expect out of a
delicious.
stew?
Right here. This
Yeah,
is
what do
it.
you expect
This
out of
says
this?
stew. This screams stew to me.
And what kind of expletives?
Hearty, sticks to your ribs, really restorative after, especially a day outside. So, you know, my modern world that we live in here, I was out skiing, but in the old days, like I said, they would have come in off the farm. They would have had some hard back-breaking work.
Yeah.
And so for those folks to taste a stew like this, you know, would even be 10 times the experience I'm having here, and I'm loving it, you know.
Beautiful.
So I could see how they'd look forward to it.
It's all about your appetite.
This is exactly what you want when you come in from the cold. So I would call this a winter sustaining stew too. Like traditionally, this is,
Yep.
you know, and if you're going to have some friends over, wow, what a great thing to make. You know, we don't have to have these lavish, fancy dinner parties. Those are nice to have their place, but in wintertime, maybe have some friends come over. Maybe we're out cross-country skiing or something, regular skiing. Maybe just went for a walk. And you have everybody gather around the table for this winter sustaining stew and get the recipe here at D&H.
Throw a nice bottle of red on the table with some crusty baguette.
Yep.
Oh. And that seals
Sweet
the deal.
butter. Yep.
That meat is just melts in your mouth.
Yeah. And it's just screaming for red wine. That's what it's screaming.
So if this has the delicious flavor, Mark, you brought up that it has a little sweetness to it. You explained that it was the balsamic vinegar in there.
Right. Well, vinegar will accentuate the sweetness of the meat and the fond from the tomato and the onions and the carrots. But it's really the contrast is what makes the sweet pop.
Okay, yeah.
And chefs, we always look at meat as having a sweet flavor profile.
Okay.
Because it does. That's why the salt and the pepper make it jump.
Okay. To Mark's point, he said something a little bit ago about, well, it was a flavor profile. And what else were you talking about? You were talking about the wine. Right. How could I forget that? So I have a lot of friends who are German, and I go to Germany and Switzerland a lot, and Austria, and even northern Italy. And so they would take this, and then the mainstay of there, what do you think it is? Red wine. That goes into everything too.
Yeah.
So that would be like the variation of this theme would be if you want that, put a little red wine into it.
Can't forget the
you
French.
can build flavors.
Yeah,
You
the
don't
French
need to
too.
follow
Yeah.
the recipe
Right.
exactly.
Right.
That's the beautiful thing about stews. You just
So you riff
throw
on it,
in
you can
whatever
riff
you
on
have.
it.
Yeah, exactly. You have a little red wine. You put it in there, a little for you.
Brandy.
You know, it's all good.
So whatever you had around the farmer, in our case, I'll give you a great example. Just 2 nights ago, my wife and I made some Tuscan kale soup. And we did that because I noticed we still had some Russian kale out in the garden that hadn't succumbed to the freezing well. I'm like, hey, there's some Russian kale. Let's go get that and make a soup. So that's what we riffed on that night.
Use any pork in there?
No, because
Okay.
we didn't have any pork on hand.
Okay.
Yeah. So she believes in let's use what we have here. So we
Yep.
had beans, we had orzo, we had
Oh, yeah.
kale,
Oh,
we
yeah.
had some vegetable broth.
Yeah.
Just so happens that that's what we had.
Razor kale?
And it was good.
Yeah, and all you need to know is the simple techniques.
Yeah.
of braising. This is a braise. You know how to do a braise. You can do this with just about anything.
More than any dish in a braise, the flavors marry.
But I think the challenging part with our customers is that they're intimidated by braise. It's something we've lost a little bit, like whether it's a pot roast and so one of our things we like to talk about during this season is about the pleasures of braising. Like you can coax out the amazing flavors from meats you can't grill, you can't quick sear, that kind of pair well with that longer term kind of approach, like an oxtail or those kind of things. Shank, but yet if you mix it, if you marry that with a liquid, what you can do, the amazing flavors that you can coax out, it's special, but people are a little bit intimidated by it. That's why we're talking about this.
Sure.
during
Well,
the winter
people
time.
need to learn. So tying this into Groundhog Day, excuse me for talking about
Yeah, right. We got to talk about why we're doing this.
That's why we did this.
Yeah.
Is Todd and I were talking about, what holiday can we celebrate next year? So let's do Groundhog's Day. I'm like, really? What are we going to do there? Well, there's this old time song. It's called the Groundhog Song. And in a little bit, we're going to play it for you. My friend Keith Brinsenhoff from Kutztown and myself, we're going to play you the Groundhog Song. And in that song, you're going to hear a bunch of guys basically saying, hey, come on, it's time to eat. We need to go out and get some meat. Now, you got to remember that back then, we didn't have great places like D&H, Dundore and Heister. We just didn't have that back in the pioneer days and stuff. So all your time was spent, as we said earlier, trying to survive. So you looked for game. And when they came to this country, they found venison, they found wild birds, they found squirrels, they found rabbit, and they found a plentiful supply of groundhogs. So to this very day, if you look in the Pennsylvania Game Commission's cookbook, you will see recipes for how to clean and cook groundhog properly because there's a real technique to that. Anyway, I say my Pennsylvania German grandfather, my grandmother used to make whatever he'd bring home, she'd make pot pie out of for stews. And as many times I was told it was chicken pot pie, and I'd be like, but it doesn't look like chicken. And it was probably squirrel, rabbit, or groundhog. Okay? Because the farmers were glad if somebody would come out and shoot the groundhog, simply because they are very dangerous. They're holes for the horses and the mules that work the fields, especially in the old days. So what would they do? They wouldn't just shoot it and waste it. They would eat it. They'd find a way to stew it like this and put it in a stew. So I know that sounds a little gross to somebody who's thinking about making their own beef stew from D&H here, but we wanted to tie to the tradition so you don't have to go out and eat groundhog anymore, right? Thank goodness
We
for
do not
Dundore
sell
Heister.
groundhog here,
Right,
to
you
be
do
clear.
not sell groundhog.
Right, just to be clear.
So thanks to Al, Mark, Todd, and everybody else here at D&H, no more groundhog hunting for you. Just come in and get the recipe for this fabulous beef stew. And all of the ingredients can be bought right here, and they'll even give you some advice if you're a newbie to it. And then live it up. Have this good winter sustaining stew, courtesy of D&H and Al's Recipe Style, which is magnificent. So guys, I asked you to play the boom boss. You don't want to play the boom boss. You're a little shy. So now we're going to go, and myself and Keith Prince of Hop are going to play you the Groundhog song. Thanks, D&H.
Thank you.
Shoulder up the gun and pick up the dog. Shoulder up the gun and pick up the dog. 'Cause we're off to the woods for to hunt a groundhog. Oh, the groundhog. Come on, boys, it's work and tear. Come on, boys, it's work and tear. 'Cause the meat'll do the eat and the hide'll do the wear. Oh, the groundhog. Come on, boys, let's pull him on out. Come on, boys, let's pull him on out. Good gosh almighty, ain't a groundhog stout. Oh, the groundhog. I like my groundhog steamed and fried. Like my groundhog steamed and fried. Little piece of bacon by the side. Oh, groundhog. Here comes Sally with a snicker and a grin. Here comes Sally with a snicker and a grin. Got the groundhog grease running down her chin. Oh, groundhog. I like my groundhog steamed and fried. Like my groundhog steamed and fried with a little piece of bacon by the side. Oh, groundhog. Look at them people that are about to fall. Look at them people that are about to fall. Don't eat till the preachers won't button up at all. Oh, groundhog. Oh, groundhog. Oh, groundhog. Oh, groundhog. Macht's gut.
Mach's besser.